Real families, real farms, real food. Welcome to Arizona Agriculture Connection with Maricopa County Farm Bureau. My name is Nicole Clements, Executive Director, and I'll be your host. Maricopa County Farm Bureau is the voice of agriculture in a community that thrives on the dichotomy of urban and rural agriculture operations. This podcast is a home for farmers, ranchers, food lovers, prospective agriculturalists, and those looking to connect the food on their plate with the farm that it came from. As we take an inside look at agriculture in Arizona, we will delve into topics like ag technology, policy, food preparation, and everything in between. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform with new episodes every Wednesday. Arizona Agriculture Connection is hosted by Maricopa County Farm Bureau and sponsored by Paloma Ready Mix and Materials, a proud supporter of agriculture and our communities. Be sure to subscribe and share your favorite episodes with your friends. For more interactions, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Maricopa County FB. Now let's discover some Arizona agriculture. All right, welcome back, Arizona Aggies, to another edition of Arizona Agriculture Connection. Today, I am so excited to have the director of the Arizona Department of Agriculture, Paul Brierley, with us today. Thanks so much for carving out the time in your incredibly busy schedule to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to be with you.
Trying to find a spot on your calendar is kind of like searching through a needle in a haystack. So we truly appreciate it. And I'm really excited to talk about your story and how you wound up here.
It's a winding road.
Well, start with a little bit of background. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in agriculture? What did that kind of look like?
Sure. So, fun fact, I guess I was born on the border in Calexico, California. Literally on the border. There was the border and then a open area that they looked for footprints, and then the road, and then our house. I'm almost in Arizona, next door, but I actually grew up in Santa Barbara County, California. My dad was a farmer, so he farmed. He managed a farm there in Calexico, and went out on his own in little San Ynez Valley, Solvang, California, and he farmed sugar beets, cannery tomatoes, alfalfa, grains, flowers for seed, just a bunch of different things. And so I grew up farming with my dad. I was driving a hay truck, picking up bales before I could even reach the pedals. He'd get it going granny low, and I'd drive it, and the side loader would throw the bales up on the truck, and he'd stack them. And started getting $1 an hour when I was worth something, I guess. I worked for him all until college, and the first couple summers back. For whatever reason, I didn't go into agriculture for college. I went as an electrical engineer and computer scientist. So did college in Colorado for 4.5 years, and then when I came out, I went to the Bay Area and was in telecommunications research. So totally different, kind of not really anything to do with ag and not really even thinking about ag. But in the meantime, my parents had moved to Safford out in southeast Arizona and kind of brought the hay business out there is what they did. And every time I'd visit out there, my wife and I would visit to the small town Safford, and it just felt so good to be back in agriculture, back in rural, and frankly I missed welding and stuff like that too. So after 5 years I threw in the towel with that career and went back to the farm, and half the people thought I was crazy and half thought that's the coolest thing ever to go back to the farm. So ended up back in ag and in Safford, and got active there with the Farm Bureau, the county Farm Bureau, and young farmers and ranchers, and active in politics, a little bit grassroots politics, and ended up going through Project Central. And Project Central, the rural leadership program that you're well familiar with, and everybody should be, everybody listening that hasn't done it, ought to think about going through Project Central. And that really kind of changed well, number one, it gave me a great introduction to Arizona. I didn't know much besides Safford, and so that gave me a knowledge of the state and the state's issues and a network around the state, and frankly it gave me more of a desire. I realized there was a way to make a living trying to impact the issues and working with people, and so I found myself as I was on the farm wishing I had more time to do the Farm Bureau things that I was doing, and so I eventually went to work for the Farm Bureau. Spent about 10 years, I guess, with Farm Bureau, eventually as their director of organization. Yeah, that brought me into Gilbert. I was in the main office there, and after a while there, the University of Arizona created a new thing down in Yuma called the Yuma Center of Excellence for Desert Agriculture. was a pretty neat thing. It was a public-private partnership between the ag industry and the University of Arizona. So basically I had one foot in industry and one in the university, and my role was pretty straightforward but kind of profound, was to understand what were the pressing problems that agriculture faced that weren't being addressed, and figure out how could the university help address them. And that was bringing researchers, projects, funding, to these issues. And my charge was to come up with usable results. And the universities aren't always known for doing that. So it was a pretty neat platform. That it was the dean of the college, Shane Burgess, who hired me, and it was his baby. And the producers in Yuma were just terrific, and they were behind me because they were financially invested and excited about it. And again, the dean wanted to kind of shake things up a little bit with the way the university did things. So I was well supported and worked on getting things done. And so we worked on irrigation efficiency and water use. Ag technology was one of my sweet spots, having the engineering background, and ag tech, water use, plant disease, all these kinds of things that they really needed help with. And I was there for 8.5 years, and we turned it into a pretty good kind of world-class research institute, I think.
There's so much that goes into that, and then you speak about your engineering background and how that kind of lends to what you did there. A lot of people think that if they want to be involved in agriculture, the only way to do that is to be a farmer or a rancher. And in reality, we're less than 2% of the United States are farmers and ranchers. What kind of advice would you have for maybe young people or those who have not been involved that maybe want to break into a career in agriculture?
Yeah, that opens up all sorts of thoughts. I mean, first of all, within agriculture, it's kind of a truism that you can't get into ag if you're not from a farm family or something. And one time I was the judge for the National YF&R competition, the Achievement Award, so for production farmers and ranchers. It was actually pretty inspiring how many of those applicants weren't from a farm family. They started something and it was their passion, and they grew it. And so I kind of came away thinking, it's not impossible. Yes, there are challenges if you're not from a farm family. If you don't have land and equipment and all that, it's a huge challenge. But that doesn't mean there's not ways to get into production agriculture. But then beyond that, there's just so much that goes into our food system, and so much need for that. I mean, we know it's going to be there always, right? Everybody eats 3 times a day. And you start talking about, and I'll start with the engineering side. I mean, so many of these problems that we face, I felt like technology is going to be a lot of the solution. And so what do we need for ag tech to be successful? We need engineers. We need scientists. And frankly, they don't think about agriculture that often. But there's so much opportunity. I mean, think of the cool things, the laser weeders, the self-driving tractors, all the automation and all that's happening. I mean, leaving aside all the food science and food safety and genetics and all that stuff, just to attract the engineers into agriculture. And the fact that people don't think of agriculture first thing when they're thinking about technology means you may not have a lot of competition if you're wanting to be an engineer in an ag tech firm. So lots of neat startups, companies doing things that are, they're funded to do these things. And so I think part of it is somehow making these people in these other degree programs and other experiences think about agriculture.
And Arizona almost feels like the center think tank of a lot of it. I think there's a lot of research that happens here, and there's a lot of other regions and countries that are modeling what they're doing off of what's happening here in Arizona.
Well, for one thing, we're arid land farming, right? And as the climate changes, there's more and more of the world that's becoming a little more arid. And so the lessons we can learn here, that we have to learn here, can be applied in a lot of places around the world. So yeah, the opportunities we farm year-round. That's helpful when you're trying to do research or develop new products. But then again, that marketplace of just all over, solve something in Arizona and then people need it all over the world.
It's definitely different. As a Midwest kid, think about harvest season, and now it's harvest season, what month?
That's very true, yeah. A lot of places, everything's done at the same time. Everybody plants, and then it grows, and then everybody harvests. And here it's, you're planting different crops every day of the year. And so yeah, as a someone to look into research or develop, it's pretty prime territory.
There's definitely a lot of opportunity for diversity in what you're growing.
I mean, there's almost no career field that I can think of that can't somehow apply to agriculture, and it's just, and like I say, the opportunity. There was one point where I thought about getting into sort of public policy and, not agriculture, and I realized, why would I do that? I mean, for one thing, agriculture is at the nexus of almost every important issue that's out there: water, climate change, labor, taxation, regulation, you name it, and ag is a big player, a key player in it. And the other thing is, people are interested in agriculture's perspective. I mean, you walk into a meeting and you're just another Phoenix lobbyist, and nobody's that particularly interested. But you walk in off a farm, and that's different, and they're really curious and they want to know. So you have a good platform.
I think one of the biggest things that I learned getting more involved in the policy side of things is that a lot of people just don't understand. They don't know. They don't have a background in ag. They don't have education in ag, and that's not their fault. And so I think that is really important too, to think about Farm Bureau and the things that we do in sharing that story, and providing the farmers the platform to stand up and share their story, and how what's going on at a legislative level impacts them, and then in turn impacts our food system.
Yeah, for sure. And there are a whole lot of political ads that feature a cowboy hat or a farm, and why is that? That's because they're interested, and they know that their constituents are interested. So they're itching to hear that story, and we just need to step up and do it. I consider that one of my roles here, is to make agriculture more prominent, in the governor's cabinet and with other agencies, and make them realize, how are we involved? Why are we involved? What's the impact to us? What can we bring to the table?
Absolutely. So thinking about kind of all of these different scenarios that you found yourself in, when we think about careers and career paths and what that looks like, kind of inside or outside of agriculture, but what are some key traits you think are important when it comes to being involved in agriculture and kind of your career path through that?
I think just being consistent, reliable, trustworthy, those kind of things. One of my favorite quotes is, "The world is run by those who show up." And I just found, by being involved, being at meetings, doing my thing, people get to know who you are. They start to trust you. They start to ask you to do something. You got to be willing to stretch yourself. You get asked to do things. I still continue to be asked to do things that really stretch me, but you do them, and people see you do them, and then they ask you to do the next thing. And so always be willing to take on a challenge, even if sometimes you don't think you're qualified for it or the best person to do it. But all we can each do is do our best. And if you're there and you're doing your best, it gets noticed, and it gives you experience. And I had a lot of people, especially as I got this job now, ask kind of, you're lining up these things as stepping stones to get there. And I said, no, I've never, not that there's anything wrong with that, and I really actually admire people who have a vision of what they want to do and do what it takes to get there. But for me, whatever job I had, I just put my head down and do it as hard as I could, and doors open up when you're not expecting it. But I was never trying for the next thing or looking for the next position. It was just do the best I could with where I was, and usually that leads to the next best thing. So.
I love that, and it feels really familiar to my story. Just kind of a lost farm kid off of the farm, trying to figure out, what am I going to do, what I want to do, and the same thing. I ended up here, which is honestly for me kind of a dream job, and it was just because I showed up, and I moved to Arizona not quite 4 years ago. And off the bat, I was like, I don't know anything about agriculture here, and I need to figure it out. And so I just kept saying yes to the next thing and the next thing, and I kept learning more, and it honestly has been a ride. But same thing, it brings you opportunities that were so unexpected.
It does. That's very cool. Being on the other side of, say, job interviews, I think back, I know young people in particular are like, just praying for a job, right, and begging for whatever the job is, but realize the person on the other side, they want you to be successful. They're looking for someone who's going to be driven and successful and stick around and do that job. So it's not so much that they're doing you a favor. You can be doing them a favor if you come in and are productive and reliable. And so I wish I had that. I wish I could convey that mindset to people that are so nervous about a job interview and just hopeful that they'll be tossed a bone and get a job. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. You bring a lot to this world, and that person interviewing you wants you to be successful. They don't want to turn you away. They want somebody who's going to be successful because that's how they're successful.
That lends to confidence, and kind of dovetailing into that. So we touched on Project Central, which is an absolute fantastic program, I can say from personal experience now. But what are some other programs out there, or maybe just deeper into Project Central, that can help strengthen some of those skills and maybe, help someone grow their confidence so they can break into agriculture or continue their career path?
Yeah, there's so many out there. I mean, I guess we start with Project Central since that's what we've been talking about. For me, that was, you used the word confidence, and if I had to say one thing for me, it was self-confidence from that. I realized the potential I had, and I realized, any fear of losing my job and not having anything to do kind of went away. It's like, I've got skills, I've got a network, I know that I'll land on both feet, no matter what happens. And so for me, it was a lot of self-confidence. But that program in particular combines giving you knowledge, leadership skills, and a network. When I first started that, we were supposed to say why we were there, and I had an engineering mindset, and I said, well, it's these 12 seminars that we're going to go through and all the information we're going to get from those. And the guy next to me stood up and said, I'm here to meet 30 people from around the state. I thought that was a really strange answer, but 25 years later, that is what mattered, is the network that we built and how those relationships come back to serve you. And there's no way I'd be in this position now without a huge network of variety of people that supported me through it. And so I think getting skills, confidence, and a network are kind of the three things. And that's things like Project Central, that's certifications, through either industry certifications or things you can get at community college or universities. There are community leadership programs that are great, and again, they get you more aware of things, they expose you to the leaders, and those would be the two big things, I think, is being out there involved, and then just getting involved in organizations, right? I mean, Farm Bureau is a huge one. A lot of what Farm Bureau does is develop its volunteers, and the Young Farmer and Rancher program being a great example. I unfortunately got into that when I was 35 and I, aged out after a year, but that program's great. There were people that had a leg up on me because they'd had a lifetime almost in 4-H and FFA. I was a farm kid. I chose not to go in those because I had plenty of farm stuff at home. But seeing the people who knew how to do parliamentary procedure and run meetings and all that was, they definitely had a leg up on me. So
I think that's a misconception that I hear a lot is 4-H, FFA, Farm Bureau. Well, that's only for the ag people. I don't have any animals. I don't grow anything. That's not for me. And that, I think, couldn't be further from the truth, honestly. If you're interested in agriculture at all, they're great avenues for education, for life skills, and our doors are open to everybody.
Yeah, no, I missed out on that one. Like I say, I realized when I started at Farm Bureau, there were skills that I was missing that people had because they were in those programs.
As a FFA livestock judging kid, the public speaking a little less formally is something that I've learned over the last few years, but it definitely was a good start. But some of these other programs, intense education from Project Central is, every time I leave, it's 2 days or 4 days, and I just spend the whole time driving home kind of rethinking about everything and at the end of it, it's still kind of, I'm amazed that I learned this much in this amount of time. And, this class, we just returned from Mexico this past weekend. And the relationships that we've built now, we're halfway through the program, and the network that we're building, and it's paying off already.
And you have no idea how it's going to pay off. I mean, one of my favorite stories, I was from Graham County, actually from Safford when I went through it. And I had 3 people in my class from Yuma, and 20 years later, I moved to Yuma, and of course, had them as solid friends there. And actually, when we had a legislative vacancy, I tried to get appointed to the legislature, and ultimately it's the Board of Supervisors that votes on that. And one of my Project Central colleagues or classmates was then at that time a Yuma County supervisor, and so he knew me well. I pretty much had 1 vote locked up. So you just never know where that's going to take you.
Yeah, and being able to have a network that you can rely on when you have questions or when you need something, like, I think that, especially with us being from such diverse background, and it's just an incredible gathering of minds that, yeah, I could go on about Project Central. Yeah. Scott would love that.
They're worth seeking out. Programs like that, like I say, the communities that have them through their Chamber of Commerce or those kind of things. And then I went through one here that the Flynn and Brown Foundations put on, Center for Civic Leadership, and that was amazing. It was more to teach you about issues. So one whole day would be on education, one whole day would be on water, one whole day would be on, whatever, healthcare. And just like you just said, you get to the end of the day and you're like, how did we learn all that in one day? In fact, they made the point, because legislators don't usually have the time to dig deep into something, that by the time we're done with that class, we're more knowledgeable than a lot of legislators on a lot of topics, just because of having spent that time to dig deep, to understand how do we get where we are, who's doing what in that area, what are the innovations. Yeah, pretty phenomenal. And through it all, I can't stress enough the networks. I mean, I was walking around the Capitol with somebody quite a few years back, and a lot of people were saying hi to me, and she said, "How do you know all these people?" And it took me a little while to think about it, but I thought, well, I have the Project Central network, I have the Farm Bureau network, I have the University of Arizona network. Each one sort of being separate, but they all come together. And again, to get this job as director, which we haven't really talked about, I think a lot of that was this diverse network of people being willing to send in letters and vouch for me.
So leading into that, perfect segue, how did it come about? Were you expecting to be nominated, and what did that look like for you?
But to be honest, and it kind of is always refreshing my mind, because just the block from here at the Commerce Authority building, it was a Friday afternoon, I'd been up here, I was in Yuma. I was working in Yuma, and I was up in Phoenix for an event, and I'd had a phone message that somebody from the Department of Agriculture had called. So it was a Friday, like at 5 o'clock. I remember exactly where I was parked, and I thought, well, I better make this call, because I hadn't returned the call. Somebody I didn't know, and it turns out he was on the governor's transition team, and he asked me would I be willing to be considered for this position. And I was honestly pretty surprised. For one thing, I've never been a Democrat in my life, and I didn't imagine I would be part of a Democrat administration. But so my answer was, can I have the weekend to think about that? Because I had a pretty good gig with the university. But I know the more I thought about it over the weekend and talked to people, and the only downside people said was I'd probably never be able to win a Republican primary if I ran for something. And I said, well, that's fine. I don't really plan to run in a Republican primary. So anyways, yeah, then it was kind of a long process. I told them I was interested, and the Department of Agriculture is a little bit different than others in that the governor doesn't just get to appoint somebody. We're a pretty new agency, and the industry have a lot to do with forming the department. And so they created a structure where there's a committee formed to surface names and send those to the governor, and she picks from those names. So that all had to be done. They interviewed several candidates and sent some names to the governor. So it was a long process, but eventually what they told me they like to do was take a couple names, to her and that are very viable, and give her the pros and cons, and let her pick which ones she wants. So one afternoon I got a call asking if I would serve, and I said, would love to do that. So here I am, and I can't believe it, but it's been 2.5 years now.
Time flies.
It's been a sprint, but yeah, so 2.5 years ago I started, and here we are.
Do you feel like this is maybe kind of one of those dream positions? Like you never really thought that you'd be here, but here you are.
Yeah, it is for sure. And part of what I thought about over that weekend of deciding was just the combination of everything I've done in the past with the political activity, the agricultural background, knowing the issues of ag and having that network. Yeah, it just brings it all together in a way that I can have sort of statewide impact, and got a bit of a bully pulpit to try to advocate for agriculture and make things work. So
I think that's a lot of times you don't really think about it when you're hearing about directors and that kind of thing, but you don't really understand the impact that they really do have on the industry. And I know that if any of our membership had an issue, they can reach out and you're going to respond. And just having that kind of a connection to the industry, I think, is so important for agriculture in general. But just knowing that, the department is open to having questions asked and finding answers if they don't have them. And, just like the stakeholder meetings that you've been holding here over the last few weeks, that's just another opportunity for someone to come and say, like, hey, this is an issue I'm having, and what can the department do to help? And I think ultimately that's one of the biggest advocates that we could have.
I love nothing more than solving those problems. I think that's why I'm here. I got multiple jobs in this role, but yeah, to be able to have a problem brought to me and bring together the right people and figure out how to solve that, which isn't always necessarily regulation by our department, but it could be. Yeah, I love that more than anything that I do here, and I'm here to serve, and so definitely I come from industry. I'm not a government guy, and never have been, so it's a new role for me, but it's really neat that I try to make sure that we're the good kind of regulation, number one, because regulation is important, but it's critical to be able to sell our products and know that they're safe and all that, but also to be able to advocate and help make things work. And a lot of times it's just communication, getting the right people talking.
Do you find that the political side of the job is one of the harder aspects, or?
At times. Agriculture luckily it doesn't seem as caught up in sort of the politics of the day. We've got a job to do, and not that there's no politics in it, for sure. Kind of my three jobs are one, running the agency. It's a 300 to 350 person agency, $45 million budget, and a lot of different programs. They measure a typical measure of a department is how many people it has. And by that measure, we're a sort of medium-ish to smaller agency. But when I look at the number of programs and the breadth of programs that we have, it's pretty staggering. I think we're right up there with the biggest agencies as far as all the different things we deal with. Even just at the highest level, we have animal services, which is all the livestock stuff and all the animal disease, and the state veterinarian, and inspections of eggs and dairy and meat, and that goes on and on. Foreign animal disease, they're dealing with the bird flu, and managing the Salt River horses. That's all in the Animal Services Division. We've got plant and produce services, and this is all the way through a reorganization that I did, because we had like a dozen different divisions, and some of them didn't make sense to me. So now it's pretty simple. Four divisions, three of them are regulatory. So Animal Services, Plant and Produce Services is all the food safety and food quality inspections and quarantines from pests and phytosanitary certifications, so our products can be sold around the world. And then our third one is Environmental and Consumer Protection, so that's got all the pesticide, both pesticide applicators, pesticide products used on the farm, used in homes and businesses, pest management type stuff, weights and measures, where we make sure all the fuel pumps are giving you what you pay for, and the price scanners are working at Walmart and not cheating you, and scales, from jewelry scales to truck scales. So that's our third regulatory. We do licensing. We give out over 200,000 licenses a year to devices and applicators. And then our fourth division is the non-regulatory. So what used to be called agricultural consultation and training. It still does that, but it's basically non-regulatory training in air quality and pesticide safety, food safety, and then also grant programs. So we've really been trying to build those up, and we handle the specialty crop block grant program, the livestock operator fire and flood assistance program, so we can help ranchers after the wildfires or floods have destroyed their infrastructure. We did one recently called a Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program, so that was for the in-between production and retail, but the refrigerated storage, refrigerated delivery trucks, things like that, to help sort of local producers be able to connect with local markets. We just got a brand new one that was on the front page of the Arizona Republic yesterday, a soil health innovation program. And we've got $1.8 million to give out for farmers and ranchers to try new soil health practices or technologies that will ultimately show water savings or water efficiency improvements. So we're excited to get that going. We got some nice support from the legislature, which takes support from industry in our animal services division, because bird flu has been such a big deal and things like that. So we've been able to build up our livestock inspectors in our state veterinarian's office. So that's been nice to be able to add a little bit of capability to some of these programs where we, in my first year, faced budget cuts. And so anyways, I don't remember what your initial question was, but it's a very diverse, well, I guess I was talking about my different roles. So that's one role, is running that department. And it's really, really hard to describe this position, the director position, what people need from you and want from you. But they look to me for direction and authority, and I try to run guard for them. I'm here to support what they're doing. I try to make sure they've got the tools they need and the resources they need, and that they're heading in the right direction based on what I know about industry and that interaction from industry. We always want to hear from industry. What's working well, what's not, what's needed from us. And like I told you before, to resolve issues that come and, hey, this isn't working, really enjoy that. So that's one half of my job. And another half is being on the cabinet. And I kind of mentioned working with other agencies, and I just think that's really key. Number one, that I raise their awareness about agriculture. So whenever they're having a conversation, and I guarantee you they're not thinking about agriculture, I like to pipe up and say, well, here's how agriculture contributes to that or is impacted by that. And talk about water issues. I'm on the Governor's Water Policy Council. I'm on her Rural Groundwater Cabinet. And even though our agency statutorily doesn't have anything to do with water, I'm in those conversations, and I'm doing my best to make sure that what they're talking about doing, whether it's the Department of Water Resources or the State Land Department with the ag leases or the Department of Environmental Quality, that they're well aware and working with me on any policies they're going to implement. So that's the second half of the job. And the third half of my job is working with stakeholders, the Farm Bureau, the cattle growers, the cotton growers, different groups, Yuma Fresh Vegetable Association, Western Growers, all those. So I make sure that we've got that good interaction and I'm knowing what I need to know. But also there's kind of the national stage we have something called the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, NASDA. I underestimated that organization, and I went to their first meeting and I expected I'd get to meet other directors, which is true, and then I'd hear from some speakers, which is true. But having been in Yuma during the 2018 E. coli outbreak, I was really struck with the fact that one of the first things when I went to a NASDA meeting was I find myself in a closed-door meeting with the top food safety people at FDA. And NASDA had been pounding on them ever since the 2018 outbreak to change their culture and respond different and work different with the growers. So here I am locked in this room with these top decision makers on that issue, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I was able to use that platform and talk about what happened in Yuma and what needs to happen. And that has evolved to where I'm now on the board of NASDA. I'm president of the Western Association of State Departments of Ag, and I'm on the Food Safety Steering Committee. And so I meet quarterly with the top food safety people at FDA. I've had face-to-face meetings with the new FDA administrator and with USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins. In fact, she's initiating now a monthly call with the directors from around the country, so that starts a week from Friday. So I get these platforms to elevate our issues, and it's amazing how there was one time I was going to a NASDA meeting, and Teresa Lopez, the assistant director in charge of produce and plant services, she told me about an issue that we were having getting reimbursed from the federal government for one of our food safety programs. And they had told her, and I saw the email, it would be about a year till they could get, it was an IT problem, it would be about a year till they could get that resolved to get us our funding. So I asked her to let them know that I was going to be meeting with the top person at FDA and was going to ask about this. And lo and behold, the night before my meeting, they got it fixed.
It's funny, but when it comes down to it, having that seat at the table for those conversations is so important for agriculture and for, our specific state and region. And that's kind of, when you think about what jobs are out there for agriculture, I think you don't really think about that, because how do you turn advocacy into a job or a career? Unless it's in a social media platform, which is too young for me, but it's so critical to be able to have those conversations and ensure that there is a voice, for that person at the table, for that industry. And it is always, if you keep saying yes, it's miraculous where you'll end up.
And I never ever thought about a state government career, but looking at state government and federal government both, there are a lot of staff people who are dedicating their lives to agriculture. It's interesting when I go to Washington, D.C., and the people that staff the ag committees in Congress and things like that, they've been in there their whole life working on water or pesticides or whatever it is. That's a whole nother career path. And internships are one of the ways to get into that. I really encourage internships of people that are going to college to work in a congressional office or this or that. There's a whole lot of need for people to fill those positions, and that's one way to find them.
Well, Maricopa County Farm Bureau's Government Relations internship will be opening applications next month.
Well, I encourage people to take advantage of that.
So kind of on that level, you wind up where you never thought you'd be. What is maybe one of the opportunities or experiences that you've had as director that you just kind of made you sit back and go, how the heck did I end up here?
It's happened a lot. But I think a week ago, probably a great example of that is every year there's a tri-national agricultural accord, tri-national being U.S., Mexico, and Canada, and this NASDA association I told you about spearheads it for the United States. And I haven't gone in the past. It happens every year, and I haven't gone. I just had too many things on my plate. And even though I'm trying to get a trade program going, we don't really have one yet. So I skipped it, and I decided this year I'm pretty active with some groups that promote renewal of the USMCA trade agreement that was NAFTA. And so I thought, and this in 2026, the USMCA is being reviewed for continuation, and with all the things going on with tariffs and trade and everything else, I thought I should probably go this year. I do get to serve. This is one of those things, is that I serve as the chair of the Agribusiness Committee of the Arizona-Mexico Commission. So I've been down to Hermosillo and become really good friends with my counterpart in Hermosillo, so the state ag director down there. And we work on things together with this border closure and different issues, livestock inspection and things. So working with her, getting used to sort of these international trade relations and whatnot, I felt like this year I should go, because I've been active with promoting USMCA, and so I decided to go, and I signed up to go, and the NASDA team called me to prep me, because I'd never been before, just to help me understand what I was getting into. And when we talked, and it was a week or two before the event, I think more like a week, and they said, by the way, you're on the board of NASDA, and so you're going to be the lead U.S. delegate. And I thought, I've never even been to this event, and I'm going to be the lead U.S. delegate. So I did. I went down and I served as the lead U.S. delegate in this very formal setting where we had bilateral meetings between, us as the United States and Canada, and then another meeting with us as the United States with Mexico, and then trilateral meetings with all three countries, and you got translators, and it's, we're basically, the point is for states states and provinces of Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. to be able to feed up to their federal government. It's a formal process we're feeding up to our federal government representatives as they negotiate. So we're not negotiating, but we're giving them the information so they can negotiate. And one of the first things I did was reach out to the industry associations, to the Farm Bureau, the cattle growers, others, and ask them, what are your top trade priorities? Because I had that platform that I could carry Arizona's issues. And to be down there, and I signed the accord at the end, and it was all very formal, and I just, kind of pinched myself and said, really, I'm the lead U.S. delegate for this formal trade thing down in Mexico. We were in Michoacan, and it was, would have never dreamed.
Oh, the places you will go. So maybe we break on careers for a minute. Can you speak to some of the conversations that you had on USMCA and tariffs and that kind of thing?
Yeah, there was, it was interesting. So each country had some beef with the other country, of course, and there were plenty of beefs with us because of the uncertainty around tariffs and that changing daily almost. So they had a lot of frustration with the United States on that. We had frustration with Canada over dairy issues, and with Mexico over corn and GMO and that kind of thing, generally known as ag technology. But basically the tenor there was that yes, we have those challenges, we need to, but we want to use those to improve the agreement, not to blow it up, because there was very, very strong support within agriculture to say we need this. This keeps our products tariff-free within North America. I separately from this meeting, but I've seen a graphic of the globe, and they color in the countries based on whether the primary trading partner is the United States or whether it's China. And in 2002, it was mostly United States. 2022, it completely changed, and really the only solid block of the United States being the main trading partner was North America, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. So for a lot of reasons, it's really key that we keep those relationships and keep those trade relationships going. So I would say it was a fairly formal, somewhat scripted event. We didn't really get down to bare knuckles too much, but the overwhelming thing was agriculture in all three countries wants USMCA to be renewed, improved, yes, but not blown up. And the other opportunity we had was industry representatives came. Throw that out to our industry organizations out there. We only had 3 from all the United States. There was a lot of opportunity because each of our delegations, so the United States, met with all those industry reps, and then separately Mexico met with all those industry reps, and Canada did the same. And they got to share with us what was important to them about the USMCA or about trade or what wasn't working so well or what was. And that's basically what it was. And it was, bottom line is we were saying agriculture strongly supports the continuation of USMCA. And within that, here's some issues that need to be worked on.
It's good to hear that, everybody's still looking for a collaborative effort on continuing the trade agreement.
We need to with our neighbors, if nothing else. And I've really been proud of Arizona through the years. At times when there's a lot of conflict at the federal level between the United States and Mexico, I think Arizona, no matter who or what party the governor is, they have kept that relationship strong with Sonora, our sister state on the south. And I think they just realize how critical that is. They're our number one trading partner. We're very close culturally, physically. It's going to be that way no matter what. So yeah, I'm kind of proud of Arizona and Governor Hobbs has reconstituted the Arizona-Mexico Commission, and that's going strong. And yeah, so I think it's important.
Absolutely. And every step along the way, there's a different career in agriculture. And it can look so different.
And I will make a plug I kind of did for state government, federal government. I mean, it's a chance to serve, and make a difference. And man, the USDA, there are so many areas of work there, from, APHIS, where it's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, and you got people that worry about animal disease, plant disease, foreign animal disease, all these different things, all the way to rural development, where you're helping getting broadband systems out there and help communities get infrastructure and help producers with value-added products. And I mean, the list of even just grant programs that USDA has is phenomenal, but think of the people that are behind all those that get to implement those and make sure they're running smoothly and impacting their stakeholders like they should. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, not that the federal government's a real stable place to have a job right now, and the places you can beat trade. I've been on a trade mission, and there's a whole foreign ag service within USDA, and actually that's one of the things I get to do in these roles with NASDA and in the Western area state departments of ag is we have the Western U.S. Ag Trade Association. Well, that gets a lot of funding from the USDA's foreign ag service, and what do they want from that funding? They want us getting it out to producers, to food processors that have products that could sell overseas. There's funding to take those companies to trade shows, set up booths. There's marketing services. Sabor USA in Central America is just advertising American products, and people want them down there. And so there's inbound trips where people come here, we can show off our beef or our cotton or our pistachios or whatever it is, and then, like I say, companies can go out, and there's a fair amount of funding for that. And even for our small producers, we talk about our local small specialty crop producers, I think there's a general antipathy towards trade, and it's like, oh, that must be those big guys, that's not for us. I disagree. I went on a trade mission to Panama, and there were chains that had, say, 3 kosher grocery stores, and they were looking for dates or pistachios or whatever it was, and that even in this world where everything's on our phone, everything's electronic, you can easily find anything. Yeah, it's that personal relationship was critical. I could see if you talk to somebody and they want pistachios and you got them to offer, they're going to buy your pistachios. And so I think it's a market. That's what all agriculture needs, is a market. And so we're trying to build up a trade program here too. That's part of Arizona Grown, by the way. We're relaunching Arizona Grown. A lot of desire and support for that. So we're excited to meet that and launch that program, and that'll provide an array of resources for producers as far as building their business up, doing production better, finding marketing opportunities and marketing materials, and like I say, all the way to even foreign trade. So.
Just a wealth of opportunities for agriculture in Arizona.
Absolutely. We grow so many crops here, and so much opportunity to do that. But it's tough. There's no question it's tough. So I want to do what we can to make that easier and more successful.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been just such a great conversation, and excited we got to see behind the curtain a little bit.
Really hard to describe what this agency does and what my job is like. The bottom line, you said it. I'm here, I'm accessible, I want to solve problems, and so I can't do that if I don't hear from people. Yeah.
If you just keep saying yes, you never know, you might end up in the director's seat.
That's right. Be careful what you wish for. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate what Farm Bureau does and appreciate what you're doing.
Absolutely. You are so welcome. So thank you again, and thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll catch you on next week's Ag Report episode of Arizona Agriculture Connection. Thank you for tuning in today, and remember, Farm Bureau has a place for you. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your friends on socials. You can also visit our website, maricopacountyfb.org, for more information and to submit a topic you want to learn about. Remember to tune in every Wednesday wherever you listen to podcasts. A huge thank you to Paloma Ready Mix and Materials for supporting our agriculture producers and this podcast. Maricopa County Farm Bureau, bringing you the stories of real families, real farms, and real food. I'm Nicole Clements, signing off. Catch you next week.